Hey guys, and welcome to the FitPro Social with me, David Kyle.
And me, Ash Burley. Hello everyone, hope we're all good. Welcome to this week's episode of the FitPro Social and our new podcast. So last week me and David was chatting all about Dave's business, and the topic came up around children and about really how children can affect your business. And both me and Dave don't have kids, so we had no idea how to give any advice or even talk about this. So we thought we'd invite on a very special guest today, Naomi, who's with us. So hey Naomi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are
Awesome.
you?
Yeah, not too bad. Just bothering you on a Good Friday. I'm sure you've got better things to be doing today when talking to us too, but I appreciate you coming on. So thanks a lot for that.
Okay.
Do appreciate it. Of course, me and Dave last week, as we mentioned, was talking about just business in general and Dave's process of selling his gym and what he kind of went through to do that. And that obviously got onto the subject of just running a business in general and the idea of what that's like when you have a family, when you have kids to think about, and how that actually affects your decisions that you make in your business, the processes you go through, and all that kind of thing. And we know there's a lot of people that we all work with who probably listen to this as well, who have children and maybe do struggle to try and balance all that. Or maybe there's people thinking about starting a family who have an existing business, or maybe they've already got a family and want to start a business. And we thought we can't really advise too much on that or share our experiences. So we thought it'd be good to bring you on and have a chat about that. But I guess before we get into it, maybe just a quick introduction about who you are and what it is you do within the fitness industry.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Naomi Carson. I'm co-founder of a company called FitPro Recipes. So we set up about 10 years ago. And at that time, we didn't have children. And by 2015, we were expecting our first child. So that's when we obviously had to change the way we did things a little bit. So yeah, we've been going for a while. We basically make nutrition resources for fitness businesses, mainly personal trainers, nutrition coaches, and we basically brand them up to the businesses with logos, contact details. So it's all white label. That's what we do.
Cool. Sounds good.
And I can definitely say when we had the studio as well, that we were a member of FitPro Recipes for 5 years, maybe 6 years we worked through, didn't we?
Yeah, easily, yeah.
That's some time.
First subscribers, I think. So.
Oh, were we?
Yeah, like legacy person there, Dave. Legacy.
Yeah.
Just on that subject, you mentioned there that you started off your business before you had children. What was the main reason you decided to get into this business in the first place? What was your inspiration around starting your business?
Well, for me, it was kind of an accident because I quit my job as a graphic designer in 2011. The reason being, my husband Alan, he landed a job working as a tutor on a personal training qualification course. And because he landed that job some distance away from where we lived, we had to relocate. And rather than going through the hassle of applying for a job, I just thought, do you know what? I've been thinking about going freelance for a while anyway. Now is a good time to do it. So I went freelance and just did some contract work for a while, working for other companies who needed extra support. So I kind of made the mistake of just going from one job to another, really, if you know what I mean. I was always chasing contracts. But Alan, while he was working for this company as a tutor, he got the idea for creating some nutrition resources for personal trainers because there wasn't really much about at the time. And he could really see a need. So a lot of the people that were graduating from the course were struggling to support their clients with nutrition side. So we just decided to kind of go for it and start creating. And because I had a bit of a background in creating recipe books anyway for my previous employer, it kind of seemed to all come together quite nicely. I used to work as a chef. So between me and Alan, we seemed to have a good amount of skills to set this business up. And initially it was just a bit of a sort of, let's see how it goes kind of thing. But we did see quite quickly that there was a real need for what we were selling. So it just snowballed, really.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think one of the things we discussed last week, how sometimes these businesses kind of start out not almost out of fluke. Like you never really plan to go and do something, and opportunities just seem to appear. And I think people that then just take those opportunities and just go for it are the ones that generally tend to make a bit of success out of it. And I like one, especially from my point of view anyway, like almost every business I've, maybe apart from my first one, but almost every business I've ever had was just out of, okay, I saw an opportunity. It happened to have the people around us with the right skill sets we could pull together. And I thought, let's just give it a go and just kind of see what happens from there.
Yeah.
So when you first started running this business, obviously, was it you and your was he husband at the time, or?
Yes.
So you and your, okay, cool. So you and your husband, were you both running this together? Did you run it as a couple, or did you run it separately to what he was doing, or was this something you did together?
Well, because he was obviously very busy at the time. We had a full-time job, and he also was running a boot camp before he went to work in the morning. So he was like full on busy. It was more like his sort of input with ideas, and I was doing the creation of the products. And I remember very early on, I didn't know how to create a website. I'd never done it before. And I don't know why, but he'd been tinkering around with WordPress. So we'd have, say, time at the weekends and the evenings together just to set up sales pages and just to do all the little bits that we needed to do to kind of join all the dots up. I hadn't got a clue what an email list was. So he somehow knew about that as well and helped me plug it in. Otherwise, I don't think I'd have ever got it off the ground, to be honest. So it was a big learning curve for me.
I think it was quite interesting. So obviously a big learning curve. You mentioned there you're working together. Your husband had a full-time job, also running a boot camp. You're now trying to run this business. You're working weekends. You're learning new skill sets and things like that. Most people that have obviously gone through that process that run a business will be able to recognize that and probably been through that same kind of thing before. It takes up a lot of time, takes up a lot of energy, a lot of sleepless nights and things like that. So how did that change when you had children? I'm just thinking, because I don't have kids, but I've recently maybe a year and a half ago, I had a niece, and I look at my brother. It's his first child, and he just doesn't sleep. He has no time for himself at all, and I'm just curious how those two things work together. Like, did he just not sleep? How does it work?
Yeah, the sleep thing is well, I'm not going to say everyone that has kids is going to have the same issues that we had. Like we've got a 7-year-old now who sleeps amazingly well. I'm not joking. She went to London last year with her dad, and the fire alarm went off at 4 a.m, and she slept through it. She's a very good sleeper. The other one, Harriet, she's 3. She's only just starting to sleep well. Although last night she decided to have me up till about, I don't know what time. I stopped checking the time after a while. I was getting frustrated with it. So yeah, the sleep thing can be a big problem, and it does affect, your mental health and your thinking and your thought processes. It's definitely affected my creativity. And even like just last year, I was struggling to sort of keep on top of everything. And I was just kind of sticking to the jobs that were easy for me, like doing the design work, doing the orders, doing the kind of, the sort of easy stuff that wasn't really pushing the business forward. Whereas now she is getting into more of a routine. I'm sort of a bit more on the ball. I feel like I've got, more brain power, which you need to run a business. The beauty
I think half the time, doesn't it, with any kind of business, you need almost like 50% thinking time, 50% doing time. And I think it must be quite difficult from what you're saying there if you can't have your brain running at full capacity because you've got so many other things going on, it must be quite a difficult process to go through.
It is, yeah. But you just have to tell yourself that it does get better in terms of the sleep. It really does. So it certainly has for us anyway. I don't know of many people with older kids who are struggling so much now with that. You've got to obviously get routines in place and try and be consistent with bedtimes and stuff. Yeah, it should all sort of come together, really.
You were saying there then that when you had the children, or last year in particular, you were saying you were doing more of the easier tasks. Does that kind of mean like some of the more complex or the tasks that weren't as worth value, you would just disregard them because you were focusing mainly on the most higher priority tasks to get them done? Or was it just that task you found easiest?
It was a bit of both, really, yeah. But in terms of things like, keeping an eye on the competition, look at the market, seeing what's changing, staying, ahead of the game, definitely took my eye off the ball there. I'd say a lot of that was to do with just not having the brain power. Yeah. But we didn't really have that problem with the first child, because she was all right after about 11 months. She got into a routine. So actually, what I found with the first one, I became really ambitious. I was like, right, we've got a kid come in. We've got to get all this in place. We've got to get the income up to this level. We were flying, honestly. But yeah, we weren't. I think every child's different, so we didn't have the same experience with the second one.
What do you think the difference was? I find it quite interesting how you mentioned there how your kind of ambitions maybe changed, or your goals maybe changed because you had your first child. So you kind of get more ambitious, you get more drive behind you to go and do these things. And obviously that sounds like it pushed your business forward. What actually changed during that time? Was there a point where you couldn't keep pushing at that level anymore, or was there like a point where that changed, and what was it that changed?
I don't honestly know. I think with women, it sometimes it's to do with like hormones and stuff, and the experience of being a mom is obviously different to the experience of being a dad. And I think sometimes your priorities change as a woman when you've got 2 young children to look after. You're not approaching your business necessarily in the same way as you were before you had children. And sometimes you think, I'm going to enjoy some time off. I'm going to maybe work 2 days a week instead of 5 now, just for a while. It's not forever. And if things go quieter, then that's the choice you make, isn't it, really? Sometimes things are more important. And for me, focusing on my little ones while they're little and lovely and cute was worth doing. And I think I would probably regret it a bit if I'd just been sort of putting them in nursery full time while they were small and not spending time with them. If you don't, I know it's a cliche, but you don't get that time back with them.
No.
So I think, yeah.
That really is an interesting. That really is an interesting point. Then that you were saying that your priorities changed to having children. Then Alan's might have changed when he had children. It was kind of. Do you really see that there is a big difference between when women business owners have children and when a male business owner has children? Is there a big difference?
It depends on your setup, I think, because obviously, I look at obviously I follow a lot of business owners on social media, and a lot of them have children. And if they've got a partner who can be the main caregiver so they can grow the business, I think it's a lot different to, say, for me, being the main caregiver and the business owner. It is a lot more to take on. And I am doing a lot more juggling than, say, the male business owner equivalent who's got a partner who does all the caregiving or the most of the caregiving. I think it is more challenging. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses or anything, but it is different.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite different. I just think it seems to be so much that you have to try and do it and balance out. You mentioned it being like the main kind of caregiver and also running the business as well at the same time. What kind of things did you have to do to manage that? So I completely get it, by the way, the whole idea of you want to spend time with your children. You might take a back foot on certain parts of your business. And I think that's extremely important. One of the things we spoke about in the last episode was about having an understanding of what your goals are and what you want to do these things for in the first place. And that's obviously going to change if you have children. Your priorities and your own personal goals and things are going to change, and you should adapt your business to go and suit that. But one of the things you mentioned there is you're kind of doing both those jobs, but also you mentioned it's not going to last forever. So did you put any strategies or plans or processes in place to help balance that? And did you have a plan in order to actually, because you mentioned this is not going to last forever, is it not going to last forever because they're going to grow up and move out, or is it not going to last forever because you had a plan to try and push the business forwards a bit later down the line?
I think like the not lasting forever bit is like the challenges of having children changes depending on their age. So obviously, our kids now are at the age where I can just sneak off and go on the laptop for an hour while they play outside, which is what they're doing now. Although I guarantee during this call, they will disturb us at some point. So obviously a year ago, I didn't have that luxury. So yeah, it is a case of having to sort of work based on, what they're doing and how much you can leave them on their own, how sort of responsible they are. Are they going to raid the kitchen while I'm out not watching them? Are they going to hurt themselves or do something crazy? You've got to obviously judge it on, what they're like really, and not take any risks.
So that's quite an interesting topic then. So almost every year they get older changes how much input you can almost have on the business. Would that be right in saying that then?
Yeah, and actually this year's big for us because our second child starts school. So instead of working 2 to 3 days a week, where I'm like, okay, Monday, Wednesday, maybe Friday, I definitely am working. Those are my work days, although I do exercise in those days as well, so I don't have a full day. And I have to do the school run at 3, so I still definitely don't have a full day. But from this September, I will have Monday to Friday where both kids are in school, and that's going to be a new chapter for us. I don't know if it's going to be easier. I don't know if it's going to be harder. I've got a feeling it would be nice because I can, rather than sort of hopping onto work one day, then having a day off, then a day back on, I've got more consistency. So even if I only do like 4 hours a day, at least I've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And my brain quite likes that consistency. Whereas other people might thrive on, having a day working and then a day off. Everybody's different, aren't they?
I think it comes down to structure, really. I think if you can structure your life that works around it for you instead of it all being kind of like chaos. I'm guessing they say when they're much younger, you plan to do the work and then one of the kids falls off their bike and they hurt the elbow or they get a cold or it just really interrupts it. But I'm guessing now with school, we've got Monday to Friday, you can really organise, have complete structure. Hopefully the structure stays the same every week.
Yeah, and I reckon also by the weekend I'll be ready to have a couple of days off. Whereas at the moment, weekends sometimes are, I'll get up really early while they're in bed and do an hour on the computer, or I'll just sneak in an hour in the afternoon. I don't really want to be doing that at the weekends. I want to be with them and doing stuff with them. So I think it's going to be good.
I think what's an interesting you mentioned there actually about we talked about the structure of your day, and you mentioned you got the school run at 3 o'clock, but also you got time to exercise and things like that. How important was the self-care side of this? We've talked a lot about putting time into your business, putting time into your children, but I haven't really talked too much about putting time into you. Like, how does that balance out with everything?
It is so important, and I'm not the best person, to say that I've stuck with my self-care. A lot of days I've gone, I should really go out and have a walk, but I've got so much to do. I'm going to just not have a walk. And then, by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, my brain has just had enough of working. Whereas if I'd gone out for half an hour, it really does help you, doesn't it? Like, I don't know about you, but cardio for me really sort of clears the cobwebs away and just gets me going. It helps me think. I get ideas. So, I have to be really tough with myself and say, no, you are doing this walk today and it's non-negotiable. So, and I've only just started to actually do resistance training again. I had 2 years off and I literally lost the motivation completely. It's only because like an old school friend who lives around the corner says, I've got a gym at home, I need a training buddy. And I was like, yes, okay. And I was a bit scared, but then after one session, it's like a switch has been flicked back on and suddenly I'm like, when can we train again? Let's do this. And I've just taken up running as well. So it's like full on again, but it's what I need to do. So yeah,
So
now that
if you look at,
it's not hard.
If we look at that then, and we look at, you said about the structure, and you've got somebody who is, they are pregnant or they're going to welcome a child into their life in the next couple of weeks and months, and they're listening to this and thinking, oh my God, my training is going to go out the window, the structure of my sounds is going to go out the window. Sounds like it's all going to be a bit crazy the first couple of years. What kind of things can you say to those people to say, actually, you know what, it is going to be totally fine. There's literally nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I think you just have to, obviously everybody's different, everybody's setup's different, everybody's business is systemized to a different degree. It is good to try and plan in, how it's going to be. And as a woman, like, definitely try and take some time off at the beginning, because I only took a couple of weeks, which is okay in a way, because I love working, but there's nothing wrong with having 3 or 4 or 5 months off, just having time with your child. If you can, not everybody can. But yeah, I think like the first year does go fast. and it gets easier quite quickly. So it's a kind of challenge for some people to sort of let go and go, okay, I'm going to just accept that there's only so much I can do now. You do have your hands tied to a degree. So for me, it did take quite a degree of acceptance. Things are going to be different.
So if we look at the hands being tied then, and it feels like you're the one having to do everything, how much of a difference does having a supportive community around you help then to maybe ease that pressure and to make things a little bit easier for you with having children and the business running at the same time?
Yeah, it does help a lot. I mean, I don't know where I'd have been without sort of, obviously Alan was around, because when we had kids, he was working from home. So that was great. If I needed him to go to the shop to get some food or make dinner or, do some washing or whatever, he's always there, which is fantastic. Very good that we had that setup in place. We had in-laws around the corner when our oldest was little, and then we had my parents around the corner when the next one was little. I had my sister around as well. So we did have that support there. I mean, they weren't there every day, maybe like a day or two a week if we really needed them. But even still, that you can get so much done in a day. Like if I say to my mom, "Oh, can you have Harriet for like 5 hours?" That 5 hours that I'm working is the most focused 5 hours I've ever done in my life, because I know I can't go on social media, I can't get distracted. If the doorbell goes, I keep it very brief with people. I try and make sure people ring me when it's scheduled for them to ring me, because I don't want my sort of flow interrupted. So
I find that quite interesting, actually, how you eventually kind of get that support and you kind of have to focus. I've got 5 hours now to get this done. I've got 3 hours to get this done.
yeah.
I think that's quite an interesting thing that I think any business owner could do anyway, regardless of if you have kids or not. But I think I find that quite difficult sometimes. I try my hardest to compartmentalize certain parts of my day. But if somebody comes in and starts chatting to me, I'll start talking to them. And I think days are the same before. This the amount of times we've jumped on calls with each other. You've just gone, I've got literally nothing planned. I had everything planned for today and I've got nothing done at all. Almost kind of like, it seems like it's forced you into thinking more about that and actually compartmentalizing it and getting work done. Did you find you actually became more productive during those times when you was doing it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Oh, I've got somebody interrupting me already.
Hey.
Go on, shut the door. Are you coming in? Go on, quickly. I knew that would happen. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I think when you're, like, for me, when I used to work in a job and I had like an 8-hour shift, I probably only did like 3 to 4 hours really good work in that period of time, which was pretty bad actually. And I don't know if that's partly because that's just how my brain works and I can't actually focus for 8 hours because I just get so tired, even with a half-hour lunch break. So now I actually quite enjoy just working in little spurts and saying, right, for 2 hours I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have a half an hour lunch break, and then for 2 hours I'm going to do my website, or just stick to those timelines. It works really well.
Is there any, for this whole experience you've had since you, especially you've had children, you've been running the business alongside it, would you say there's any big things that have happened, any kind of really rewarding moments where you've been able to balance both these things out, or any really rewarding moments that your businesses allow you to maybe have more time with your children that you can think of? Hello. We've got a special guest.
Yeah, sorry about this. She's not really sure.
That's all right. It's pretty apt for what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Sorry, can you say that last bit again?
Yeah. So is there any point through this, since having children and running your business on the time, are there certain things that's allowed you to do, like any really rewarding things that's actually allowed you to do, maybe compared to say if you had an 8-hour job and you're still doing that kind of job? Is there anything that your business has allowed you to do in terms of for time for your family and so on?
Yeah, like just generally have a lot more freedom. It feels good to work for yourself and not for somebody else, and you can sort of dictate your hours really. And if I work really well in the mornings and the afternoons. Some people might work better in the evening. So when you've got your own business, you can dictate your hours. And we've had sort of quite a lot of days off, which we wouldn't be able to have in a job. We've been we did quite a bit of traveling when the oldest one was little, and just like working holidays, which again, would never have done with a full-time job because you only get so many days off. So sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've kind of been lucky that we timed things as we did, because we obviously set up our businesses, then had kids, and we knew that we were going to have children, and we tried to create businesses that would help us have a degree of freedom. So that we've got time for them and time to still make some money, because they're not cheap.
No, I can imagine they're not cheap at all.
Yeah.
Just on that line, so go.
No, you go first.
I was going to talk a little bit there. You mentioned about creating a business to allow you to have that level of freedom. Did things change within your business then for doing that? Did you actually decide when you decide you're going to have children? Did you think, well, actually, let's change the structure of this business to give us more free time? Was that a conscious decision you did?
I don't know that it was really a conscious thing, and that we particularly made that many changes, but we probably made some little adjustments naturally without really even thinking about it. I mean, before the kids came along, I would often be, I'd have a friend that would ring and say, do you want to come for a barbecue? Like, I'm just creating a new product. Can we just not come this time? And it'd be like, it's Saturday night and I'm working at my computer. I used to do that quite a lot because I was just so keen to get things made and out there, and I wouldn't be doing that now though. So
I find that really quite interesting, because I'm terrible for doing that. Like, I'll sacrifice time with friends and things I've got to get some work done. I've got to get this done, and I think, I don't know, I find that quite nice, the fact that it's been able to allow you to, I guess, shift your priorities, I suppose. So you go, well, actually, no, I want to go and spend time doing this. I want to have time with fun. I want to go and take them and have experience with my kids and my children, with my other friends and family and everything else. I think that's quite a nice thing. Something I'm quite jealous of, actually, because I really struggle to do that in my own head.
I do like, just having this conversation now, I do realise that, I know I work a lot less hours, but in those hours that I work, I do get a lot more done in my time. So yeah, it's quite interesting, really. Like, I probably used to work maybe 40, 50 hours a week before the kids came along at certain times, just because I felt like I had so much to do. Whereas now it's like, I've always got a big to-do list, but not all of that is urgent. And actually, some of that stuff just comes off the list anyway, because it's like, I don't need to do that anyway. So it's quite interesting, really, how you feel your day now when you've got children compared to before. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
So as we come to the end of today's episode, really, then, what kind of maybe 2 to 3 tips could you give somebody who maybe is struggling with running a business and having children? So obviously you've been successful, you've had 2 children, and you've kept the business going the whole time, and it keeps growing as well. But for somebody maybe who's having children or got children and their business, and they're just really struggling to do it all, what kind of things, or maybe 2 to 3 things, do you think that you've done well that they should potentially consider?
I think a big one is to not be afraid to ask people for help, because I think a lot of people, I mean, I certainly struggle to ask for help, and I'm definitely a yes person, and I take too much on sometimes, but I've definitely learned over the last couple of years to do that less. And if it's calling on relatives, calling on friends. I even got chatting with somebody that used to work at the nursery that my daughter goes to, and I was chatting to her outside in the pub a few months ago at a christening, and she's like, "Oh, I'll look after Harriet if you're ever struggling." It's like, well, all right then, yeah. Whereas before I might have gone, "Oh no, I don't feel awkward sort of taking you up on that." But yeah, it's very good to not be afraid to get help, because you can't do it all. We're not sort of superhuman, even though we might like to think we are. So that'd be my main tip, really. I don't really like to give tips with parenting, because I'm obviously not the best parent in the world myself. I think another thing though that comes to mind though is trying not to be perfect, because maybe we've got this idea that we have to be perfect parents, but I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think the best thing is to be able to sort of give them your attention as much as you can, but obviously then give yourself the attention that you need as well, because you can forget to do that when you're sort of juggling and spinning plates.
Nice. Naomi, I appreciate you coming on today. I know it's been quite an interesting episode, especially having children come in just as we're talking about it. It was perfect timing. But for people who maybe, if people are now interested to learn more about FitPro Recipes and what you do, and kind of like where they can learn more about you, where can people go?
So we've got a website, which is fitprorecipes.co.uk. Have a look at that, and you can contact us from the website. Yeah, we do. So yeah, that's our main place to find us. We're on Facebook as well. We're on Instagram, so nice to chat to people on there.
Well, I'll pop the links into the show notes as well, so people can have a look and find out a bit more about what you do. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing all that. With, like Dave said, it was obviously quite a personal thing to talk about, but I think it's an important thing. It's something we get asked about a fair bit in our own businesses. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all that with us. Really, really do.
It hasn't put anybody off having children.
I've probably done quite the opposite, I think.
Oh, it's nice to chat with you both as well.
Actually, yeah, you too. Cheers. Well, thanks for joining us, and for everyone else, we'll see you all on the next episode.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.